What if the biggest twist in Prince Harry's 5-year legal war was never the court case he lost, but the reason he was fighting it in the first place? What if the public spent years watching headlines about security, family, reconciliation, and royal heartbreak while an entirely different battle was quietly unfolding behind the scenes? Because after the dust settled on Harry's crushing court defeat, one uncomfortable question refused to disappear. Was this really about safety, or was it about something much bigger?
What was it I said about Meghan Markle?
I am. Would you let me talk?
Ever that's been racist?
Are you going to let me talk?
The Court of Appeal in London has heard Prince Harry was singled out for different, unjustified and inferior treatment in a decision to
28 that the Duke of Sussex has lost his case against the British government regarding his level of protective security when
is into his security when he comes to the UK, depending on what he's doing, if he's attending a coronation or a few.
His 24-hour police protection reinstated after he lost a High Court challenge earlier this year.
The BBC just says the court decision is out, which obviously didn't go in your favour. I want to start by asking,
for a very well publicised event, the Women of Vision Awards, at which Meghan was presented with an award.
Now Prince Harry's legal team is challenging that decision, asking for a judicial review. In a written statement
of the court, because there was potential risk, which ultimately turned out to be one of his supporters anyway.
Right.
So,
receiving a new review from Ravik, it seems the one question everyone is asking is, what about IP?
Sussex is opening up about his life and telling Oprah Winfrey how therapy has helped him get to a better place.
A female stalker who had previously made threats online. That's not true.
Articles that Harry is looking to see how other countries treat him based on his status via the UK.
Have his security reviewed, and it's been this long-running saga has really plagued not only his business.
That this person is a known person to them. They know that they're a stalker. They know that this has been going on.
Really, they wanted to remain as part of the royal family. This 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
You can't do that.
And you can't do that.
No.
And the Queen...
Restructured their staff, creating what has been labelled the Montecito Royal Court. What does that mean?
Have to provide value to the taxpayer and also the Commonwealth as well. That it's not, we don't just keep the royal family because...
The legal security challenges that are preventing him from reconciling with his estranged dad, King Charles.
For years, the public was fed a simple story. Prince Harry stepped away from royal life, moved to California with Meghan Markle, lost his automatic police protection, and then spent years trying to get it back. On the surface, it sounded straightforward. A prince worried about his family, a father concerned about security, a son wanting to bring his children back to Britain without fear. It was emotional, it was relatable, and it generated endless sympathy. But behind that carefully presented narrative, critics started noticing something strange. The battle never seemed to end. Every loss was followed by another challenge. Every setback became another public statement. Every court appearance became another headline. It was as if the fight itself had become more important than the outcome. The turning point came when Harry's final appeal collapsed. 3 judges, unanimous decision, no loopholes, no ambiguity, no second chances. The ruling was devastating. Yet instead of ending the conversation, it created even more questions. Why would someone spend years and reportedly millions fighting so aggressively over a security arrangement that could have been handled through other channels? Why keep pushing when the odds were getting worse? And perhaps most importantly, what exactly was the real prize? That is where the story starts becoming far more complicated. According to critics, including Piers Morgan, the public had been looking at the wrong target the entire time. While everyone was focused on armed officers outside hotels and security details during UK visits, another possibility was lurking in the background. A possibility that almost never became the focus of mainstream coverage. The phrase was simple: internationally protected person. 3 words. 3 words that suddenly made the entire timeline look different, because this status is not ordinary protection. It is not an upgraded security package. It is a classification generally associated with world leaders, diplomats, and individuals whose protection becomes an international obligation. The implications are enormous.
The Duke of Sussex is challenging the Royal and VIP Executive Committee, which decided to reduce security for himself.
And according to critics of Harry's campaign, obtaining recognition connected to that level of protection would have changed everything. Suddenly, years of litigation started looking different to some observers. The emotional interviews looked different. The public statements looked different. The constant focus on danger looked different. The dramatic walks into court buildings looked different. Because if the objective was larger than simply visiting Britain safely, then every move began fitting into a much bigger puzzle. Piers Morgan was among the loudest voices pushing this interpretation. While much of the media debated whether Harry deserved sympathy or criticism, Morgan kept returning to the same question. Follow the incentives, follow the benefits, follow the money. His argument was straightforward. Harry and Meghan operate globally. They travel constantly. Their lives are no longer centered around palace schedules. Instead, they move through charity events, speaking engagements, media projects, international appearances, and business ventures across multiple countries every year. That kind of lifestyle comes with a staggering security bill. Not thousands, not hundreds of thousands, potentially millions every year. And if some form of internationally recognized protection status became available, critics argued that the financial implications could be extraordinary. Suddenly, what looked like an emotional fight over family visits started looking like a battle with massive practical consequences. The more observers examined the issue, the more questions emerged. Was this really about seeing relatives? Was it really about occasional trips to Britain? Or was there a broader objective hiding underneath the public messaging? Because one thing became increasingly difficult to ignore. People generally do not spend years in court, endure repeated defeats, generate endless controversy, and invest huge resources unless the potential reward is enormous. And if the reward was enormous, then the story everyone thought they understood was missing a major chapter. As the legal fight continued, another detail began attracting attention. Harry repeatedly argued that he had not received what he considered an adequate security assessment after stepping away from royal duties. The complaint became one of the central pillars of his public case. The narrative was powerful. A prince left exposed, a father worried for his family, a man abandoned by a system he once trusted. But critics pointed toward another uncomfortable fact. Reports suggested mechanisms existed through which assessments could be requested, and that raised an explosive question. If alternative paths existed, why continue down the most expensive public confrontational route possible? Why choose years of courtroom warfare? Why choose endless headlines? Why choose public battles that deepen divisions with the monarchy? The answer, according to critics, was strategic, because pursuing one route supported the larger legal argument while pursuing another might have weakened it. If true, that completely changes the story. Instead of a man blocked from every available option, it becomes a story about choices, calculated choices, risky choices, expensive choices, and suddenly the entire saga begins looking less like a desperate struggle and more like a carefully constructed campaign. That interpretation may be controversial, but it gained traction because of what happened next. The moment Harry's appeal finally collapsed, reports indicated he pursued actions that critics argued had been available much earlier. That timing immediately fueled fresh suspicion. Then came the incident that poured gasoline on an already raging fire. Just months after the legal road appeared exhausted, reports emerged involving a woman described by some outlets as a potential stalker during Harry's UK appearances. The story exploded instantly. Headlines screamed about security breaches. Questions about threats resurfaced. The timing alone was enough to send royal watchers into a frenzy. Harry had just lost a major legal battle, and suddenly there was a real-world example being discussed everywhere that seemed to support concerns about his safety. To supporters, it looked like proof he had been right all along. To critics, it looked suspiciously convenient, and that is where the controversy deepened. As more details emerged, questions started replacing certainty. The narrative became messy, the facts became disputed, and once again, the public found itself trapped in another cycle of competing interpretations, each side convinced the other was hiding the truth. What made the entire situation even more explosive was the contrast that critics kept highlighting. While legal arguments focused heavily on danger in Britain, Harry continued traveling internationally. High-profile appearances, public events, overseas visits. Some of those locations carried genuine security risks of their own, yet photographs showed him smiling, shaking hands, meeting crowds, and moving through environments that did not exactly resemble the image of a man frozen by fear. Critics pounced immediately. They argued that the public message and the public behavior behavior did not always appear to match. Every new trip became another talking point. Every appearance became another debate. Every photograph became another piece of evidence used by both sides. Supporters saw courage. Critics saw contradiction. And the argument never stopped. Meanwhile, the relationship between Harry and the royal family appeared to drift even further into uncertainty. Publicly, there were calls for reconciliation. There were statements about peace. There were emotional references to family, history, and healing old wounds. Yet, at the same time, interviews continued generating controversy. New accusations surfaced. New headlines emerged. New tensions appeared. It became a cycle that nobody seemed capable of escaping. Every attempt at reconciliation appeared to arrive alongside a fresh source of conflict. Every olive branch seemed followed by another explosion. And royal observers started asking the same question again and again. How can peace be achieved when every conversation creates another storm? That question became even louder after public polling suggested growing frustration among parts of the British public. Suddenly, discussions about titles moved from fringe conversations into mainstream debates. Commentators argued over what should happen next. Some believed Harry and Meghan were victims of an outdated institution. Others believed they had crossed lines that could never be uncrossed. The divide became deeper than ever. And in the center of it all sat King Charles, facing pressures from every direction while speculation about the future of the monarchy intensified. By the end of this extraordinary saga, one reality remained impossible to ignore. 5 years of legal battles had produced no victory. Countless headlines had changed nothing. Emotional interviews had not altered the final ruling. Courtrooms had delivered their answer. The appeal was over. The judges had spoken. Yet somehow the controversy felt more alive than ever, because the real battle was no longer happening inside a courtroom. It was happening in the court of public opinion. And that is why this story refuses to die. For some people, Harry remains a man fighting for his family, his safety, and what he believes is right. For others, he represents a prince chasing privileges he willingly walked away from years ago. Two completely different interpretations, one extraordinary story. But perhaps the most fascinating part is this. After everything that happened, after every lawsuit, every interview, every accusation, every royal headline, the biggest question still does not have a universally accepted answer. What was Harry truly fighting for all along? Was it security? Was it principle? Was it status? Was it something larger that never fully reached the public conversation? The arguments continue. The theories continue. The speculation continues. Meanwhile, Prince Harry remains thousands of miles away from the institution that defined his entire life. King Charles continues carrying the weight of a monarchy under pressure. Prince William reportedly remains unmoved, and the distance between all of them seems just as vast as it did years ago. The irony is almost impossible to miss. The royal identity that made Harry globally famous is the same identity that keeps pulling him back into controversy. Every battle circles back to it. Every headline depends on it. Every debate is connected to it. The thing he appears determined to move beyond remains the thing the world refuses to stop associating him with. And that may be the deepest mystery of all. Because after 5 years of drama, legal warfare, public heartbreak, and endless headlines, Harry still appears no closer to the future he imagined when he left royal life behind. The court case may be over, but the story is not. If anything, the final ruling only exposed how many unanswered questions were hiding underneath the surface the entire time. And somewhere inside those unanswered questions lies the reason this saga continues to captivate millions of people around the world long after the judges delivered their final verdict.